Booyah, Recruiting Nation. This is Master Chief Allchin here from Washington, D.C. Navy Yard. I'm excited to be here with Admiral Waters for the Uncharted Waters podcast, episode 25. Today we've got with us two special guests, some of our top recruiters that in the country. As a matter of fact, we've got our top medical officer recruiter from NTAG Pittsburgh, Lieutenant Melvin, and our top Gen-Off active duty recruiter, Lieutenant Santora from NTAG Carolina. So thank you first off, ladies, for being here with us today. Before we get into conversation, please tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your background.
Thank you, Master Chief. So my name is Lieutenant Melvin. I've been in the Navy for about 21 years, and I've been doing recruiting for about 3 years.
Okay.
I hail from NTAG Pittsburgh, and I'm just really excited to be here.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, sir.
And I'm Lieutenant Nicolette Santora. I've been in the Navy for about 7 years now, commissioned through OCS out of after finishing school at Virginia Commonwealth University. And then I started out as a SWO, and I did 2 tours on USS Mahan and USS Truxtun out of Norfolk. Following there, I came down to NTAG Carolina to start the officer recruiting tour. And I've been with them about 2.5 years now, and it's been an incredible tour, a lot of recognition, and great to be with them.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So you actually went through the officer recruiting program.
From the start, and I believe that's a lot of the success I've had, is I actually understand what it was like going through the whole process, what I wish I would have had when I went through it, and what I can give back to them.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And for you, Lieutenant Melvin,
Yes, sir.
how did you come into the Navy? What was your commissioning path?
I commissioned through the Health Services Collegiate Program, and I actually commissioned out of NTAG Richmond through the Portsmouth office.
Okay.
And that, like what LT was saying, like knowing and going through the pipeline, you have a first-hand experience of what your applicants are going to go through
Yeah.
when they apply and go through the program too.
Mine was actually in TAG Richmond too, technically, since I was out of Norfolk.
Yeah. Okay.
It was
Yeah.
serendipitous.
Very good. Right. And so for those officer recruiters in Recruiting Nation that haven't had the experience of being recruited at their commissioning, what can we teach them? What can we talk about from your own experience? What's really made the difference? First, we'll start with Lieutenant Santora in the Gen-Off mission.
Well, I've seen a lot working with other recruiters in there. There's some people that aren't even officers. There's some that haven't gone through OCS. So working with some of the enlisted crew too, recruiting, sometimes it's a lack of knowledge of what the actual designators do on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
Or what to expect going to OCS. So a lot of times, like if we have people that are afraid to ship because they just don't know what they're necessarily getting into, they see a lot of what boot camp is, but not necessarily what OCS really is going to be like. And so you get a lot of nervous people. And so making sure you understand how to calm them down and have them actually have an expectation
Yeah.
for going forward. And then coming from the other commissioning sources too, it's the same thing. They just don't understand necessarily what actually the 13 weeks is going to look like. A lot of people even just get nervous about when they actually commission, like how many family members can I have come? All those little things that you don't think will actually matter necessarily to them, but it does weigh on them before shipping off to join the Navy.
Yeah, and so for those recruiters, those officer recruiters that haven't been through that process, seeking out officers in the command that have can be a good way to kind of get some insight and help that candidate understand what they're getting themselves into.
Yes, sir, I'd agree with that. Is just understanding the process from start to finish of what they would have liked to have. Because I know myself going to OCS is I didn't know I was supposed to be studying gouge before going to OCS. And so showing up the first day, I had everyone, my lack of knowledge going in, understanding rankings and everything all night. The first couple days, people were jamming knowledge down my throat to make sure I was on the same starting level. And being able to give that to my applicants, I feel better about them leaving as well.
Yeah, that's really good. And Lieutenant Melvin, you know, when you think about the medical officer recruiting mission, It's a real challenge, right? You're dealing with many specialties. The Gen Off has multiple designators, but then when you get into medical, there's like so many eaches that you get into.
Yes.
How do you think through that? How do you succeed in that world, especially thinking through how many options these young people have?
Yeah. I think the best way to start is just meeting them where they are and figuring out where they want to go. Because everyone has, like, it comes from a different background, I would say. But once you learn about their background and where they want to get to, it's more helpful for you to figure out where they need to be.
Mm-hmm.
So as soon as I learn and I see their resume and I know their background, I know what college they attended, what degree they completed, then you can better finesse them and put them in a position where they can fit into a program where they can reach their end goal. And it's different per person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And where do you most effectively prospect? How do you find the people to achieve the types of numbers that you've achieved?
Email is my most successful prospecting tool.
Interesting.
Yes, sir.
So-
Email.
So how do you know, where do you get that information?
Yeah, so, sir, I send like thousands and thousands and thousands of emails. I start July 1st, and I use my previous year's college list, and I use the fiscal year's college list that I get once they start August 1st, and I email every single student. And then we email the MCAT lists and the DAT lists for those students taking those aptitude tests, because we know where they're going to go anyway. And so that has been the most successful tool that I've used, and it has worked for me every time.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead,
Sir,
please.
I think that's interesting when we talk about some of the upper funnel prospecting, and we talk about attempts. I think a lot of people go straight to phone attempts and think that's the avenue that I have to take. But in all reality, you have phone attempts, you have emails, you have text blasts. There's lots of different avenues that you can take to get the attempts to ultimately get those contacts out there. I know that you also do a lot of packages and a lot of kits, so I'm interested in how do you find that balance of doing that paperwork, but still having the discipline to do the prospecting and making those attempts on the front end?
Well, I haven't really been sleeping much.
Oh, no, we have to edit that.
Yeah.
I'm kidding.
No, but seriously, it's just, my processor is really awesome, and he's really fantastic. He's been doing it for so long. And then my OPO too. So my OPO knows like how much work we put into these kids, and so when they're done, he does not delay them. The day that he gets the APSR, he signs them and we push the kid forward. And so that's really helpful. So that says to me, when he takes that time, that he respects the work that I'm putting in. And so because of that, whatever he's doing, he'll stop, he'll sign those, we'll get the kids pushed and keep moving forward. But it is a lot of man hours getting all those kids together.
Yeah, it's a lot of work.
It is,
Yeah.
yes, sir.
So, Lieutenant Santora, Lieutenant Melvin mentioned, working with their OPO. What I'm interested in is sort of your view of how the structure of officer recruiting works for you. How do you relate with your OPO, the OACR? What are some things that work in Carolina that allow you to have the kind of performance that you've had over the last year?
Yes, sir. To that list, I would add the processor as well. So
Yeah.
starting with the processor, I work in the same office as my processor.
I do
He's
too.
2 desks behind me. So, and he was also in recruiting for the Army when he was active duty. And so he's seen a lot. And so working with him, phenomenal. I'm able to get the kid up. And then working with OPO and OACR, I would say we have a very tight-knit team at Intech Carolina, even including the other officer recruiters, to where if there's something that I need to do, like go to a career fair, but I have a deadline on something else, they'll either fill in at the career fair or they'll help in any way possible. So I would say just not being afraid to utilize them is the biggest thing. And the most that I utilize them is talking to NRC directly to get whatever waiver we need approved, or even understanding if there was a change in the deadline on the package we're submitting.
Yeah. Have you seen things that have changed over the last, your time in recruiting, for the better or for the worse in helping the officer mission? A
Yes, sir.
particular note?
I would definitely say for the better, especially giving you the kudos on the last few months. There has been a huge increase to the timeline that we're submitting everything. And so the biggest thing that everyone knows about is medical waivers getting approved.
Yeah.
When I first showed up 2.5 years ago, it was taking 3 days to get waivers. And then it turned medical waivers, and then it turned into 2 weeks to get that back. And now we're getting them back within 24 hours.
Yeah.
And so I would say that has been the biggest accomplishment that I think we could have made as a team to get packages out. Because taking a test, if they fail the test, they have to wait 30 days. If they pass the test and they're a simple screening at MEPS, I can get their kid out in a week.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And so getting that medical waiver back has been the best thing that could have been
Yeah,
for our
thanks.
team.
Thanks for that. Lieutenant Melvin, what are some of the things that the challenges you faced as you entered into recruiting and really got going? What were some of the headwinds you faced, and how did you overcome them to get to where you are today?
Well, it was a little bit of a rough start coming from the fleet into recruiting, but I think what has held me over is just my experience. It's really helpful for me, working in many different hospitals across the nation, overseas, and here in the States as well. So when I talk to my applicants, I can give them a firsthand experience of what Navy medicine is like, because that's what they want to know. What kind of diagnoses do you think I'll be able to see? How many patients do you think I'll have? What are the working hours? What is the access to care like? Those are the questions, those are the answers they want. And then two, it's an adjustment at first. Until you learn all your programs and what's really important, it's important to have a rapport with your applicant. That's more important than anything. But also knowing your programs too. So when your applicant pivots, you can adjust easily, and being just fully transparent with your applicant, because they're very well read, they're very well informed, and they know when you're not on your game.
Yeah.
So always knowing what you're talking about has been very helpful for me to overcome those challenges.
Do you have any thoughts or advice on how to up our game overall with respect to direct accession, in particular doctors and dentists? Any thoughts there on DA?
Well, I did share some thoughts with you before.
Yeah, please.
And so the idea that I shared, you want me to share that
Yes,
idea?
please.
So the idea that I shared with the Admiral is to take our HPSP program and essentially just invert it in a way that we make it more attractive to residents. And so the biggest hurdle we have, especially for our HPSP mission, is the applicants are nervous they're not going to get their top choice of residency. That's always the hurdle. Am I going to get to be the ortho surgeon that I want to be? Because if I choose HPSP, maybe I won't now have to go GMO. That's a huge concern. So I shared with the Admiral that we should invert it in a way that we get those seniors who are graduating from medical school. Once they've been accepted into their residency program, we offer them the financial assistance program and then pay off their medical school. Because that's the second hurdle, right?
Yeah.
Can you pay off my medical school tuition? That's what's going to make it more attractive to them. Because if we get an experienced physician who's been doing it for 10 years, 7 years, maybe already has a practice, it's hard to get them to say, give up $500,000, $1 million a year and come and serve with us.
But it's cool
It's very cool.
to come here.
It's
So-
absolutely cool. And we do have some of those physicians who want to serve those who serve. And so it's really meaningful for them in that way. And so if we want to get momentum and get our stride, I think that's the best way forward.
Yeah, that's a fantastic idea. So Lieutenant Melvin, just so Recruiting Nation knows, has given me an action item to work, but I'm very happy to do it because it's a great idea. And we're gonna run with that as far and as fast as we can to see what we can get out of it. But I wanted you to have an opportunity to talk about that so others can hear it, and because I think we could really make a huge difference with this very large medical officer goal that we've gotten this year. But we can do it.
We can.
We can
and
do
we
it.
will.
Yeah, absolutely.
Winners win.
I love it. Winners win. So Lieutenant Santora, are there we talked about email here. Do you use email? Do you use handshake? Do you use phone power? Or do you just walk around and like meet people?
I would say my biggest one is actually text messaging. So that's another big kind of chain item. A lot of mine is word of mouth. And so a lot of my applicants, I've put in 2 sets of twins. I put in a brother and a sister. I just had another brother of a sister that has already commissioned get selected. And so counting on family members. And then
Essentially debt
classmates.
referrals. I mean,
Essentially, and so, and then a lot of my ones that I recruit to, since I'm in Raleigh, I have a ton of universities around me, and so classmates. And
Yeah.
that's gonna be my biggest one is word of mouth and giving them the good experience and making sure they understand what they're getting into, because then they're able to actually share that with other
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
And then my biggest thing is, as a surface warfare officer, I've worked with most of the designations of officers, so I understand what those programs are. And so when someone's coming to you and they think they know what program they want, they may be describing something that will fit them better. And so finding what they actually want to serve as, because then that's also gonna help maybe
Yeah.
retention.
yeah.
And so trying to find what's gonna make people happy. And then a few of the people, it's after they commission that they're giving me the referrals.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think what you've highlighted here is really important, that customer service, which can seem like it's taking time away from prospecting or looking for others, actually contributes to that,
Significant.
right? If you do the right things with people.
It's still building that trust-based relationship that we talk about so much. You hit it in all phases of the recruitment process. When you're doing your initial interview and you're gathering the wants and the needs and the desires and the goals of the individual, they may think they want to go down this path, but we've got a better path that might be a better fit for them. And then as you continue on in their time while they're waiting to ship out to OCS, working with them really with the goal to make sure that they're properly prepared for success once they get to OCS. So it's really rolling out the red carpet and giving the customer service treatment that we all would expect to receive
Yeah.
from any championship organization.
Right, world-class championship organization, we treat people right, and that then causes people to want to be part of the organization.
And
So-
bring their friends in.
Yeah, so that speaks highly of you and how you interact with your candidates, and I think it's a great example for Recruiting Nation as we think about, well, how do we succeed in officer recruiting? And then finally, one of the things that I've heard anecdotally is that a lot of times young college students don't really understand that they can apply to directly commission, meaning as they get their college degree, they're eligible to apply for and get selected to go to OCS. Have you seen that, and how do you kind of overcome
Yes.
that? Because I've heard anecdotally, well, I guess I have to go do this enlisted program and then do an enlisted to officer program later. Somehow there's this misnomer out there.
There is a lot of misconceptions. A lot of them come from Reddit or Air Warriors or other branches. And so I'll have people that may be looking into like the Air Force or Army, and every branch does officer recruiting and programs a little bit different. And so Air Force, for example, they have certain degrees for certain programs. Well, the Navy is more wanting to see that you're able to learn. And so we don't necessarily, and this is an exception, this is general officer recruiting, not medical. They do care about what degree you have. They want you to be a doctor. But for general officer, they're worried that they don't have a STEM program. You might have a history degree, and they're worried that they're going to be limited to what they can do. But really, we want to know that you can learn.
Yeah.
And so I think that's one of the biggest things is making sure that they understand, and that's why they may be coming to you thinking that they can only do this one type of officer because that's what their degree is in, but
Yeah.
then opening up to what their actual interest is. And for the way to overcome that, I don't think I have a great answer just because it's so many factors affecting that. Our biggest hurdle for general recruiting is Air Warriors and Reddit and what people are taking from those sites that are just not facts.
Yeah.
And the bad gouge that they're getting on there. And
Right. Well, it's continuing to have a great relationship with your candidates, continuing to fight, falsehoods with truth,
Yes.
and continuing to prospect, right, to reach out, right. I imagine you have to deal with people that don't deal with. That's probably the wrong way to say that. You encounter people who have misperceptions about what it's going to mean to be in Navy medicine.
Absolutely, sir, all the time. Similar to what LT was saying, like we hear from other services outlandish things, like if you go to the Navy and you become a doctor, they'll put you on a ship and you lose your certifications. Like they'll say very random things. And so what has been helpful to me is showing them in the instruction, here's what it says, right? Here's what your job's gonna be. This isn't true. Like and then also allowing them an opportunity to speak with physicians. That is helpful. So that interview process is really helpful to let them speak to an active working physician or nurse or specialist, and they can say, here's what I'm doing every day.
Right.
And so they can help to mitigate some of those things.
Yeah.
But it's definitely hard to like retrain them, and so that's why it's important to lead with trust and maintain transparency the whole time.
Yeah.
And with that same thought, the general recruiters aren't going through that interview process, so it's helpful that the command does have a surface warfare officer at the command, because one of the biggest things is all the negative things that people read about surface warfare community, and then I'm able to talk to those applicants. So I have talked to a number of Intech Carolina shippers that weren't my applicants, but to make sure that they understand what the actual program is and what the day-to-day is. They want to know, like, what's 24 hours as a surface warfare officer.
Yeah, what's it like?
What's it like?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's great. So as we wrap up, I just want to say thanks so much for joining us. Thanks for what you do. You've obviously personally excelled to be a Recruiter of the Year, best in your category. So thank you for that. And thanks for taking some time to share your wisdom, the things that you've learned with Recruiting Nation.
Thank you for having us, sir.
Absolutely. And I'll pitch it back to NCR to close us out.
No, thank you, sir. Thank you, Lieutenant Melvin. Thank you, Lieutenant Santora. Excellent information. I think that Recruiting Nation can take a look at the things that you all do and add some of those best practices to their toolbox so we can get better collectively as a team. But that's all we have for this episode of Uncharted Water Podcast. Thanks for joining us today, and we will see you next time. Hoo-yah, Recruiting Nation. We're out.